I should have listened to my family before dating her. I'm pretty sure you will enjoy this one, so get ready, buckle up, and hit that subscribe button. They say love is blind, but looking back, I think I was just willfully ignorant. My whole family warned me about her. My parents, my siblings, even my best friend, they all saw something I didn't. Or maybe they saw something I refused to see. Let's call her Julia. Julia was complicated. Beautiful, yes. Charming, absolutely. But there was always something off about her, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I ignored it. I told myself they were just being overprotective, that they didn't understand her like I did. But I was wrong. So wrong. It started small. Little things that didn't add up. Like the way she'd disappear for hours without explanation, only to show up with some vague excuse about losing track of time. Or the way she'd get defensive whenever I asked about her past, changing the subject or brushing it off with a laugh. And then there were the nights she'd come home smelling like alcohol, her eyes glassy, and her words slurred. She always had an excuse, a work event, a girl's night, a stressful day. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. But the cracks started to show. One night, I came home early from a business trip, hoping to surprise her. What I found instead was a stranger in my living room. A man I'd never seen before, sitting on my couch, laughing with Julia like they were old friends. She introduced him as a co-worker, but something about the way they looked at each other made my stomach twist. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to seem paranoid, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Then there was the ID. I found it by accident, tucked into the back of her wallet. It had her picture, but a different name. A different address. When I confronted her, she laughed it off, saying it was an old ID she'd forgotten to throw away. But the name didn't match any of the stories she'd told me about her past. And the address? It was for a town she'd never mentioned. I didn't know what to think. Part of me wanted to believe her. But another part of me, the part that had been ignoring the warning signs for months, knew something was wrong. And then one night, everything came crashing down. I was out with friends when I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was a bartender from a club downtown. Julia was there, drunk and alone, and she'd given them my number as her emergency contact. I rushed over, my heart pounding. When I got there, she was slumped over the bar, her makeup smeared, and her words barely coherent. The bartender handed me her purse, and that's when I saw it. A stack of business cards with her picture and a different name. A name I didn't recognize. I didn't know what to do. I took her home, put her to bed, and sat there, staring at the business cards, trying to make sense of it all. Who was she, really? And why had she been lying to me? The next morning, I confronted her. I showed her the cards, the ID, and demanded answers. She broke down, crying and apologizing, but the truth was worse than I could have imagined. She'd been living a double life, pretending to be someone she wasn't. And the alcohol? It wasn't just a coping mechanism. It was a problem. A big one. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to walk away. But another part of me, the part that still loved her, wanted to help her. To fix her. But I didn't know if I could. The days after the confrontation were a blur. Julia and I barely spoke. She moved around the apartment like a ghost, her eyes hollow and her movements slow. I didn't know how to act around her. Every time I looked at her, I saw the stack of business cards, the fake ID, the lies. But I also saw the woman I'd fallen in love with, the one who'd made me laugh, who'd held me when I was down, who'd promised me a future. I didn't know which version of her was real. I decided to dig deeper. I needed answers, even if they hurt. I started with the name on the business cards, Emily Carter. A quick online search led me to a social media profile that matched Julia's picture, but had a completely different life story. Emily Carter was a freelance graphic designer from a small town in Ohio. She had friends, family, and a history that didn't match anything Julia had ever told me. And then I found the photos of Julia with men I didn't recognize, captioned with inside jokes and heart emojis. My stomach churned as I scrolled through them, each one a punch to the gut. I confronted Julia again, this time with the evidence. She didn't deny it. She just sat there, her hands trembling, as she told me the truth. Her real name was Emily Carter. She'd moved to the city to escape her past, a past filled with bad decisions, broken relationships, and a drinking problem she couldn't shake. She'd created the persona of Julia to start over, to leave behind the person she used to be. But the lies had snowballed, and she didn't know how to stop. I never wanted to hurt you, she said, her voice breaking. I wanted to be someone you could love. Someone who wasn't broken. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to believe that she'd changed. But another part of me, the part that had been lied to for months, was screaming at me to walk away. Why didn't you just tell me? I asked, my voice cracking. Why did you feel like you had to lie? Because I was scared, she said, her tears falling freely now. I was scared you'd leave me if you knew the truth. And I couldn't lose you. Not you. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that she'd lied because she loved me, not because she was trying to manipulate me. But the trust was gone. And without trust, what did we have? I told her I needed time to think. She nodded, her face pale, and I left the apartment, my mind racing. I didn't know where I was going or what I was going to do. All I knew was that I couldn't keep living like this. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. The thought of walking into the apartment, our home, and seeing Julia or Emily or whoever she was felt impossible. So I drove. I drove for hours, the city lights blurring into streaks as I tried to make sense of everything. By the time I pulled into a dimly lit parking lot, my hands were still shaking. I sat there, staring at the steering wheel, replaying the conversation in my head. The way she'd looked at me, the way she'd cried, the way she'd admitted to living a double life. My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me out of my thoughts. It was Julia. Or Emily. I didn't even know what to call her anymore. She'd left me a voicemail. I hesitated, then played it. I know you're angry. I know you're hurt. And you have every right to be. But please just come home. We need to talk. I need to explain. I need to make this right. Her voice cracked on the last word, and I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that she was sorry, that she wanted to fix things. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just another act. Another lie. I didn't respond. Instead, I called my best friend Mark. He'd been the one to warn me about Julia from the beginning. He'd been the one to tell me she was trouble. And now, more than ever, I needed his advice. "Hey," he said when he picked up. "What's up?" "I need to talk," I said, my voice trembling. "It's about Julia." He didn't ask questions. He just gave me his address and told me to come over. When I got there, he was waiting for me on the porch, a beer in hand. He handed it to me without a word, and I took it, grateful for the distraction. "So," he said as we sat down, "what happened?" I told him everything. The fake ID, the business cards, the double life, the drinking, the lies. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with every word. "I told you, man," he said when I finished. "I told you she was trouble." "I know," I said, running a hand through my hair. But I didn't want to believe it. I thought she was different. "She's not," Mark said, his tone firm. "She's been lying to you from the start. And if you stay with her, she'll keep lying. You deserve better than that." I didn't know what to say. Part of me knew he was right. But another part of me, the part that still loved her, couldn't let go. What if she changes? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. What if she's telling the truth now? Mark sighed, leaning back in his chair. People don't change overnight, man. And even if she does, that doesn't erase what she's done. You can't build a future on lies. I knew he was right, but knowing it and accepting it were two different things. The next morning, I went home. I didn't know what I was going to say or do, but I knew I couldn't avoid her forever. When I walked into the apartment, Julia was sitting on the couch, her eyes red and puffy from crying. She looked up when she heard the door, her face a mix of relief and guilt. "You're back," she said, her voice trembling. "Yeah," I said, closing the door behind me. "We need to talk." She nodded, her hands twisting in her lap. "I'm so sorry, Alex. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't know how to tell you the truth." I sat down across from her, my heart pounding. "I need to know something, and I need you to be honest with me. No more lies. No more excuses. Just the truth." She nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "Okay. Why did you do it?" I asked, my voice low. "Why did you lie to me? Why did you create this whole other life?" She took a deep breath, her hands trembling. "I told you before. I wanted to be someone you could love. Someone who wasn't broken. But it's more than that. I was running away. From my past. From my mistakes. From the person I used to be. And I thought if I could just start over, if I could just be someone new, I could leave all of that behind. But I was wrong. All I did was make everything worse." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to believe that she'd changed. But another part of me, the part that had been hurt too many times, was screaming at me to walk away. "I love you, Alex," she said, her voice breaking. "I love you more than anything. And I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. If you'll let me." I looked at her, my mind racing. Could I trust her? Could I believe that she'd really changed? Or was this just another act, another lie? "I don't know," I said finally, my voice trembling. "I want to believe you. I really do. But I've been hurt too many times. I don't know if I can do this again." She nodded like she understood. Like she knew she hurt me too much to expect me to just forgive and forget. "I get it," she said, her voice soft. "I don't expect you to trust me right away. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn that trust back. If you'll let me." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to take her back, to believe that we could start over. But another part of me, the part that had been burned too many times, was screaming at me to walk away. "I need time," I said finally, my voice cracking. "I need to think about this." She nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "I understand," she said, standing up. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here." And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving me sitting on the couch, my heart pounding in my chest. The days after our conversation were a whirlwind of emotions. I couldn't stop thinking about Julia, about Emily, about the life she'd been living behind my back. But more than that, I couldn't stop thinking about myself, about what I wanted, about what I deserved. I decided to take some time for myself. I stayed with Mark for a few days, trying to clear my head. He didn't push me to make a decision, but he was there when I needed to talk. And slowly, I started to see things more clearly. Julia, Emily, had hurt me. She'd lied to me, betrayed me, and broken my trust. But she was also human. She'd made mistakes, just like everyone else. And while that didn't excuse what she'd done, it did make me realize something. I couldn't hold on to the anger forever. I had to let it go. Not for her, but for me. I reached out to her one last time, to tell her it was over. Not because I didn't care about her, but because I knew I couldn't be with someone I didn't trust. She cried, of course. She apologized. She begged me to give her another chance. But I held firm. I told her I hoped she found the help she needed, that she found happiness. But it wouldn't be with me. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I started over. I moved out of the apartment, found a new place, and began rebuilding my life. It wasn't easy. There were days when I missed her, when I wondered if I had made the right decision. But there were also days when I felt free, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I focused on myself, on my career, my hobbies, my friendships. And slowly, I started to feel like myself again. Like the person I'd been before Julia, before Emily, had come into my life. And then one day, I met someone new. Her name was Claire, and she was everything Julia wasn't. Honest, kind, genuine. She didn't have a perfect past, but she didn't try to hide it, either. She was real. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could trust someone again. We took things slow, getting to know each other, building a foundation of trust and respect. And as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, I realized something. I was happy. Truly, genuinely happy. Looking back, I don't regret my time with Julia, with Emily. She taught me a lot about love, about trust, about myself. But I also know that I made the right decision. Because sometimes walking away isn't the end. Sometimes, it's the beginning of something better. And if you love listening to stories from Reddit, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button to never miss out on uploads.